Hi, David here, and welcome back to the channel where we're looking at life in spirit through the automatic writings of early 20th century medium James Padgett. At the end of the last midweek video, 212, I mentioned that on the evening of March 7, 1916, James heard from 3 people in spirit, 2 of whom were known to him personally from their Earth lives. This was one of the evenings when James helped people in spirit who were struggling to make progress or in a condition of darkness. And these are useful messages to let us get a better understanding of exactly what is meant by that. They're quite long messages, so I'm going to give each one its own video. The one we're going to look at today is from a former judge, Louis O'Neill, who was known to James Padgett. Louis has written to James previously and seems to be making some progress. There's a lot in this message that's of interest, not least the personal detail and the degree of ease that James Padgett now enjoys with some of his spirit communicators. It's now almost 2 years since he was first encouraged to try automatic writing. The message from Judge O'Neill begins as follows. I am here, Louis O'Neill. Yes, it is he who was called Judge. I merely want to say a word, as I have not had the opportunity to write to you for a long time. I am now in a better condition than I was, and am in more light and have less suffering, thanks to the beautiful spirits with whom you brought me into contact. I find that as I get rid of some of my old beliefs, the better I am, and the more progress I make, and the less darkness surrounds me. Your wife has helped me a great deal, and she is a wonderfully beautiful spirit and filled with love and kindness. I see a number of my old friends, but I am sorry to say that a great many of them are in darkness and suffering. So Louis O'Neill is acknowledging the value of the work that James does in advising those who are struggling in the spirit world and in introducing them to members of James's spirit band. So often in these messages, we see that it is an introduction from James that gives more highly developed spirits the opportunity to begin helping. You might think that more highly developed people in spirit could just approach those who need their help on their own initiative. But we have seen that those in darkness often shy away from brighter spirits because it often feels to darker spirits that a spotlight is being thrown on their own lack of development. And the embarrassment they feel can be acute. This is why encouragement or an introduction from someone on the earth plane who doesn't see the embarrassment of the person in spirit is more often listened to, because the person in spirit can approach without feeling exposed. So James often finds himself in a very special position to make a difference with the right words. So often in this world, we see that the right words can be healing. And people being people, it should come as no great surprise that the same is true when we interact with people in spirit who are in need of healing. Louis continues his message with an update on a mutual friend, possibly in response to James asking after him. He tells James that Liscombe is in a very bad condition and has not progressed any thus far, although I have tried to help him some. But as you know, he had a dogmatic and all-knowing temperament on Earth, so he has the same qualities here, and it is hard to make him see things differently from what he thinks they are or should be. You may know that he frequently visits his old haunts in the neighbourhood where he spent so many hours in drink, and he is still drinking, as he thinks. and seems to get a kind of satisfaction out of the deceit. And he does not seem to be inclined to turn his thoughts to anything of a higher nature. I tell you that the appetites of earth are strong with the spirits who come to this world with them unsatisfied or not gotten rid of. And it is so sad that he has them to the extent that he has when he passed over. But sometime, I hope, that he will have an awakening to the true condition of his existence and to the necessity of his having his thoughts away from those things, which will enable him to get out of his awful darkness. That's a sad tale, but a very instructive one. Our thoughts and habits can create a kind of bubble that we live within. And we can cast off the physical form far more easily than we can cast off that bubble. As soon as you have that image in your mind, you can see why it might take someone else to help us escape it. Although it's a while since I first started developing as a medium, I still sit weekly with an experienced circle leader so as to continue my development. A few weeks ago, my guides showed me exactly this thought bubble by lifting me out of mine. They showed me my physical form, sitting in the chair, in the cabinet, with what looked like a giant bubble around me, but with a hole punched through it. The perspective I saw was from above and slightly behind, looking down on this physical form sitting inside its broken bubble. It was a very powerful vision and a striking visual version of the point Louis O'Neill is making in this message. Louis continues, "Now you must not think from this that I am a very highly developed spirit, for I am not, but just as the higher spirits have a work to do, so have I. And my work, of course, can be only with those who are in a worse condition than I am. And strange as it may seem to you, every time I help one of these lower spirits, I realize that I help myself." What a wonderful provision of God this is. And if men would only realize this, they would live more in accordance with the golden rule. Louis doesn't spell out exactly what he means by the golden rule, but it's pretty clear that he's thinking in terms of service to others as key to one's own personal development. He also makes the point that we don't need to be especially highly developed in order to be of service to others. We just need to be a little further along the path than they are. Which means there will almost always be someone we can help if we make the effort to look for them. James then asks Louis about other mutual acquaintances. Louis replies, "Yes, I have seen Maurice Smith and John Clark, and many others that we both know. Also Perry. He is in a bad condition too, and does not seem to be much inclined to listen to the advice of some spirits who come to him. Your grandmother seems to be trying hard to help him, and he seems to have more confidence in her than in any other spirit, and at times it looks as if she is helping him, and I have no doubt that she is. But then he will relapse into his old condition and bewail the awful deed that he committed. As you know, he was a man of deep conviction, and he seems now to have some conviction which holds him to his conditions of suffering and darkness." Those of you who follow the channel will remember that we looked at a message from Perry back in video 2.10. The awful deed, of course, is that he took his own life, and he gives us a powerful example as to how fully the thoughts and habits we develop during our earth life can continue to hold us back when we pass to spirit. Louis remarks, "Well, if only we knew while on earth what the truths of this spirit world are. Well, if only indeed, there speaks the voice with the benefit of hindsight. Of course, thanks to James Padgett and others, including those who undertook the task of publishing his messages, and those who continue to do so, we do have the chance to explore and develop an understanding of spirit. I'm lucky to have my own mediumistic experience of spirit, but even then, these messages have done a huge amount to shape my own exploration. They have functioned for me as a kind of treasure map with an X marking the spot. And exploring continues to be an endlessly fascinating adventure. It does puzzle me that so few take an active interest in something they will have to experience at some point in time. It's like heading into an examination without bothering to learn anything about the subject beforehand. In his message, Louis acknowledges something of this to James, saying, "You certainly are wonderfully proud to have revealed to you all these things, and I am told that the spirits from the celestial spheres come to you and give you their messages of truth. I will confirm that this is unaccountable, and you must wonder too, for when on earth I did not know that you had any conception of the things that come to you now. I know that I did not, and that my beliefs were only those which were to rely upon what the Bible taught, as I thought. And there was no reality to me in these teachings, and the only effect was to create in me beliefs which I now see in many particulars were all wrong. At least they have now been realized, and I am told that they will not be, and yet they cling to me in a way that holds me to my present condition. I wish when on earth I had known what you now know, for if I had, I would, I am certain, be in a better condition of light and happiness." Well, I have written a long time, and I feel better for having done so, and I thank you for the opportunity. So with my kind regards, and in hope that I may come to you sometime and write again, your friend and well-wisher, Louis I. O'Neill. Well, at the time when that message was given, Louis might not have felt that he had made all that much progress, but through James, he has given us a message that I expect many of us can relate to. He gives the impression of a thoughtful man, making a genuine effort to understand, and through making a difference to others, making a difference to his own development. So we wish him well and hope that all these years later, he is enjoying the fruits of his labours. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that this was the first of 3 messages that James received that evening, which gives us an idea of just how much writing he did some evenings. In the next video in this midweek series, 2:14, I'll be taking you through a message from a man called John Carlyle, who was a very prominent politician in his day. It's not the next message from March 7, 1916, but one that Carlyle had written previously in November 1915, which will help us make sense of the March 7 one. The next video in the Divine Love series will be video 1013 this coming Sunday, where we'll be looking at 3 messages from the Apostles Mark, John, and James, given in September 1915. The first 2 are very short indeed, so the main point of interest will be on the message from James. But they all help to build our picture of how they worked with James Padgett in order to convey these messages. So I hope you'll join me for one or other of those. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already, as it does help to introduce the material to others. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care until then. Bye-bye.